Here's how my friend sold me on Children of Morta. Hey dude, if you haven't already looked at it, the game called Children of Morta on Steam might be a good one for you. It's a roguelike story-driven dungeon runner with permanent upgrades. I have spent 6 hours today alone on it, and I have been quite entertained by it. The pixel art is stunning though, absolute masterpiece of visuals. And the man was absolutely right. I love this game. It's rare that the story in a game is good enough that I will actually pay attention to it, but it's even rarer that I will want to rush to finish the game just to see how the story ends. But that's where I was conflicted, because the gameplay is so good that I didn't want it to end. Premise: a corruption is moving through the lands, a corruption that kills the innocent. However, the lands have guardians, the Bergson family. You will take control of a Bergson family member to do roguelite runs to fight the corruption. Or you and a friend can control 2 family members in local or online co-op. This game is actually 2 games, the main story and then the family trials. I will start with the main story. The combat, top down, and you start with just a primary attack and a block if you're playing the dad. You can kinda stunlock most enemies, but there are enemies that won't get stunlocked and will attack you anyway. That's why you have the dodge. The dodge doesn't seem to have invincibility frames, but I could be wrong. But if I dodged into a wall, then the enemies would hit me mid-dodge. As you level up a character, you get more abilities, like the dad has an AoE that hits 3 places, a shield slam and discharge. But there are 7 characters, and each of them have their own unique playstyle. Like Linda is an archer that can walk while shooting, but Lucy shoots fire and has to stand still while shooting. Kevin is a highly mobile assassin that hits fast, but Joey is slow and tanky and takes a very long time to do a primary attack. This is awesome. Having all these characters be so different keeps the game from being stale. You have 7 characters to explore, which means 7 playstyles to explore, and they change and become better as they level up. Like Kevin, I hated him before I leveled him up. His attack is too short and he's too weak to hit. But then I level him up, and then he can just passive dodge attacks, hit very fast, become stealthed, and assassinate enemies. One ability that hits where you are, and the other it teleports behind you nothing personnel kit. And you are encouraged to level up and play all the different characters with traits. A good example of a trait is the dad's level 20 trait. If the dad gets level 20, actually it's level 21, then you grant all the other members of the family health regeneration. All the other members of the family have traits like this, so you are encouraged to play all of them. And there is a mechanic that punishes you for playing only one of them. I actually felt that the punishment mechanic was a little too lenient, and it could have been harsher. It didn't end up affecting me much. They also have ultimates with this rage meter. Linda's ultimate will make her shoot very fast, and the pawn's ultimate will give her a shield. So, a short burst of power that stays true to their playstyle. The combat just feels good, and the animations are great, and each hit has great impact. But it would be meaningless without good enemies, and there is a pretty decent variety of enemies. Most of them will just charge into melee, but even then they don't attack the same way. Like the little blob things will just go right up to you to hit you, but the bats will stop just outside your melee attack range and then dash through you to attack you. Then there are ferocious enemies, basically a stronger version of a normal enemy, more health, more damage, but they also have some effect. Like pulling you in, jizzing some goop on the ground that hurts you when you stand on it, have these crystals that hover around them that shoots lasers in a line, or some crystals that explode and stun you. So there are a lot of different attack patterns that you have to learn to counter. It's great. There is still more. Runes and relics. Runes will augment your abilities, like giving the Dats right-click a stun when it hits enemies, or making your primary attacks set enemies on fire when you hit them. The relics can be passive effects like an increased dodge chance, or it can be an active ability like throwing out a bunch of bombs. Runes and relics will allow you to do some build crafting during your runs. Then gemstones. This is your in-dungeon currency that you can use to buy stuff, open certain chests, or gamble. It really wouldn't be a video game in 2022 without some gambling. Let's talk about the actual map itself, because it's good. The maps you go through have some randomness to them. They will be slightly different each time, and the most significant way you notice that is in these little side sections that are separated by a blue barrier. Behind there can be a puzzle thing where if you get it wrong you have to fight some enemies, a story scene that most likely ends with you fighting enemies, or just play some Pong against a machine. Pong is fun when I'm winning. If I lose, it's a broken, outdated piece of shit with terrible game mechanics. Then, the golden barrier has a relic you can find. Those random blue barrier sections are another way the game keeps the game from being stale. Always something new or different with this game. Great job. As for the level variety or art variety, I guess, there's 3 main ones, or 3 main dungeons, each with their subsections. Like the first one has 3 and the next one has 3 and the final one has 2. The first one is a cave aesthetic, the second is desert, and the third is lava. You do go out into the forest, but not much. But there is also the family's house. You gather gold in the dungeons which you can use to buy upgrades from Uncle Ben in his workshop, or from Grandma in her meth lab. There are also a lot of extra story moments you can see here, or even just look at what the characters are doing. Like Linda brushing her hair, or Lucy playing around or something, Grandma reading books, and Kevin moping around. There is a lot of detail here. Oh wait, boss fights. They can be hard depending on the character you're playing, like a boss could be very hard as John, the dad, but laughably easy as Linda the archer. They are challenging, they test you, they don't do the whole I'll just throw bullshit at you as artificial difficulty. They're good, enjoyable and satisfying to beat. The gameplay is just fun, my guy. So much variety and so satisfying. Even though I liked some characters more than others, each of them still have something about them to appreciate. It's just so good. Story. Okay, so the only voice acting you hear is this guy that narrates everything, and he has a great voice.
Aged wood creaked, echoing through the quiet rooms.
His name is Ed Kelly, and I really want to see if he has done some audiobook work, cause I could listen to him all day.
Hannibal Lecter, how you doing?
And it isn't just his voice, it's also the substance of what he talks about, and the art and animations you look at when he speaks that really breathe life into the scene. The presentation is really good and it makes you care about what's happening, and just, my god, the art in this game sometimes is absolutely breathtaking. Just look at a single frame of the opening cutscene. My god, I want to buy this as a painting and hang it above my bed. But when I unpause it, I didn't think it was possible for my soul to come, but it just did. But I'm supposed to be talking about the story. Why is the story so good? Well, I have told you about the presentation, but it's the characters, the family. Even with little dialogue coming from each of them, they still have so much personality. And that comes just from character design. And what they're doing in the house just fleshes these characters out. And then throughout the story you get to see the members of the family struggle and grow as people. The story is just as much about healing the land as it is about the family. I don't want to spoil anything because I really want you to experience everything for yourself. But the story also has these self-contained mini-stories inside the story. Like in one of those random blue barrier things you come into a scene where a small wolf puppy is holding off some enemies after its mom had been protecting it. Its mom is obviously unfortunately dying, but the puppy won't because I will protect it. I will give my life for this puppy. You save it and then you have to heal its injury and then it becomes a member of the family. That even gives you health potions before boss fights. I love this little guy / lady. It's just fantastic. The whole end of the world stuff I didn't care much about, but the little stories like this, that got me invested. The family got me invested. It's great. The family trials are pretty different from the main mode. These are roguelike runs with a tiny progression thing that can help you in later runs. So what changes is that this is a random procedurally generated dungeon with 10 levels. 13 if you count the shop levels. Same combat and you select one of the family members, but runes and the leveling tree are gone, replaced with a talent system. So when you level up you can select a talent, an RNG choose from 3 system. Talents will be something like a rune or a passive effect you would find in the leveling tree. You lose all this when you die, but this system is way better at giving you the ability to see the crazy builds you can get with this game. Like with Mark, I was effectively using his ultimate all the time just by default, and had a lifesteal on my basic attack and a shield with my shift ability, so I could just mow down crowds of enemies and emerge with full health. It was great. Until I got to the final boss fight. The final boss fights in this mode really go into that avalanche of bullshit territory, because not only are they one of the bosses, but they also have the ferocious enemy effects. So, you're fighting the boss while also avoiding lasers, goop, or a stun effect. And it can be a little too much to be honest, just way too much shit going on the screen. But with all of that, I can imagine it is very satisfying to beat this mode. I say I can imagine because I still haven't beaten this mode, because the bosses are fucking bullshit and I hate them. This mode is alright as an extra thing. I don't really like the lack of progression. While you do progress and unlock something beneficial, you can only choose one beneficial thing for each run. So it is far more of a roguelike thing, and I'm more of a roguelite kinda guy. Roguelites have the overarching progression, but it is a fun mode that adds something pretty different from the main story mode. DLC. Paws and Claws. If you buy this DLC, you are also supporting a charity that helps animals. And the DLC just adds more house events that involve taking care of animals. I didn't really play with this, but I bought it to help animals. All of the proceeds from this DLC go to the charity, which is just awesome of the developers. The Ancient Spirits DLC isn't that good, since it just adds a new character for the Family Trials mode, and a skin system, relics, graces and charms. It just doesn't add a lot, and adds nothing to the main story mode, which is the best mode. I was hoping for a story expansion, so it's a little disappointing. The DLCs are kinda meh, but I recommend Paws and Claws just because of the charity if nothing else. And it adds some stuff to the story mode, which is good. Conclusion. This is a really good game. Once I got into the game, I couldn't stop playing it, and playing anything else just made me want to play this more. The main story mode is so great, the roguelite system there was so fun to progress through, and the story stuff was presented so well that I actually paid attention. That is rare for me in video games. And the music is good, by the way. I did run into some issues, like once the game froze on a loading screen, and once I couldn't move my character and I just had to die. Both of these happened only once, and I ran into no other issues, so almost a completely smooth run of the game. I give the game an unironic 10 out of 10. It's a fantastic game that I would recommend to almost everybody. Probably the only reason I wouldn't recommend the game is if you don't like top-down perspective action games. It's an amazing game. Subscribe, call me Uncle Bryan, and have a wonderful day.